Ebo bibo mamano asim ka nko echiri ya zelu dịka o si dị gị bụ onye ọma na-ege ntị daalụ nne na ụmụ ife kunu si wee na-esola anyị n'ihe anyị na-eme n'elu akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nke taa na Eastern News 24 bịa bụ ife anyị na-akpọ ya evening tea dịka unu si wee malụ ọ evening tea ka anyị na-akpọ ya ihe a bụ gbasịta maka ihe na-eme n'obodo a and gbasịta maka ngwụrụwa na-azọ emeka bụ ka ọ dị na ọbụla ya dị enye unu update ihe na-emegasị ebe dị iche iche kunu na-aghọta ife na-emenụ ọ ga-enye aka anyị na-akwado ụwa ya ọfụma n'ife ha na-eme maka information is power so ya mere anyị ji wee na-agba mbọ iwetara unu ya bụ nnukwu ozi anyị na-akpọ evening tea n'elu akwụkwọ ma dịka o si dị o nwere ihe Biafran prime minista nwere ikwu anyị n'elu akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nke taa a ma chọkwa onye ọbụla bụ Igbo ọma na-ege ntị na-anụ olu m na-anụ asụsụ m na-asụ gee ya bụ ife ị ga-esi ya ịdrọpụla your own contribution, your own comment n'elu akwụkwọ gbasara maka ihe ndị a niile Biafran prime minista kwuo. All right, over to you, sir.
Sherry, I stand by my assertion. The margin is unknown to us because to a very large extent, INEC did a fantastic job of somebody is telling me that it's breaking a little. I hope before we go in, we're able to cure that. What should the obedience be doing right now? We should be organizing. You can't leave this for 2027. There are myriads of issues that have to be dealt with before any election might hold in our current circumstances. INEC has to become more accountable. You have to have amendments to the Electoral Act that demands that there must be polling level transmission of results real time. There must also be a reordering of the electoral calendar. It is possible to have all the elections in one day, and that is what should be happening. So there are multiple things that have to be done. It's not just about election. There has to be political engagement with the system to make sure that what we desire, we work towards it. You cannot wait until 2027 to do anything. There must be a wholesale drive to recruit new blood into the political process. If you have only Peter Obi on the ticket, and then you have all kind of crooked people hanging on to his coattail in whatever party it might be, whether that be the Labour Party that is apparently under attack currently, or whether that be another political platform, the one thing that must happen, and quickly too, is that there must be recruitment into the process by persons who have already detached themselves from the process so that the system does not get its way again in 2027, assuming there will be an election in 2027. It's already 10 o'clock now. I wish I could take more questions, but I actually have only two, but I don't believe I've spent sufficient time answering the second question. But the most important thing about that second question is obedient movement needs to get organized from local government, ward level, to state level, to national level. There is a critical need for the movement to become better organized so that we are not waiting until the last minute to be running around to coalesce behind the person of Peter Obi. The movement is not about a person, it's about ideas. These ideas have to be clearly articulated so that it percolates all the way down. You can kill men, but you can't kill ideas. You can rig out persons, but you can't rig out ideas. So these ideas must be properly structured, properly articulated, so that it begins to populate the space. Thank you very much. Good morning once again. It's 10 o'clock now, and I believe we should start the day's business. And what do I want to talk about today? It's about the flight of shame. Yep, the flight of shame. Nigeria and the flight of shame. What do I mean? There is a proverb out with a rider, Ailojuti Oloriarun. Let me repeat that. Ailojuti Oloriarun. Shamelessness is the father of all ailments. If a man is devoid of shame, he is capable of everything and anything. When you now have shame vacating an entire country, you have major problems in that country. As I have observed the Nigerian condition, and as I have continued to interrogate our circumstances, first I found that corruption isn't our real problem, it is impunity. But I then found that undergirding our impunity is a complete absence of shame. We have become so shameless as a collective, individuals, every collective in Nigeria, from the church group to the mosque group to unions to neighborhood unions to town unions, the level of shamelessness that has come to define and characterize our dealings is actually quite scary. But in order for us to better understand this, let me share something with you. In Yoruba mythology, or let me say our culture, there is this story, anecdote that is often told. So a group of people sat together, and I don't want to be distracted by the noise that will be coming from my UPS, so I'm going to need to get up to turn it off. So give me a second. All right. So in Yoruba culture, we have this anecdote, and it speaks to about 4 friends. They got together, and one said, "Oh, I have major problem." Now, so what's the problem? He said, "It's my wife. She's a thief. Everywhere we go, she's busy stealing. And when she's done stealing, people turn around and say to me, that's the husband of the thief. So when things get missing in the neighborhood, it is my door they come knocking to come and ask to search my house, because everybody knows that my wife is a thief." This was his own story. And then the next one piped up and said, "Oh, his wife is a loose woman. She sleeps with everybody in the neighborhood. And in sleeping with everybody in the neighborhood, what has tended to happen is that their wives will come into his home to embarrass him all the time. And then when the wives come into the neighborhood to embarrass him, he cannot even hold up his head because he knows that his wife is very promiscuous." The next one piped up. He said, "His wife is a very, very dirty woman. She's not clean. She's slovenly. Everywhere is always messed up. And this woman is constantly shaming him. That if they found somebody had crapped in the neighborhood, they come to him because they know that it's his wife who is shameless enough to do that. If they found somebody had left clothes unwashed, soiled, or they use the kitchen and the whole place is dirty, it's the wife that is usually the first suspect, and everybody will keep pointing in his direction." And then Ijapa, that's the tortoise. You know, he's always the one that will be used in Yoruba anecdotes. In fact, in almost all African anecdotes, you find the tortoise featuring prominently. So in this particular tale, the tortoise showed up again, and tortoise went, "You are all complaining about your wife. Your wife is a thief. Your own is promiscuous. The other one is a dirty woman, slovenly, never takes care of the homestead. That his own wife is the worst, that they should all just keep quiet and forget the ailments of their wives." Say, "What is it about your wife?" Say, "His wife is lacking in shame." That all of these things that you have said, his wife has all of them. That of all the vices in the world, The biggest one, shamelessness, is the one afflicting his wife. That if it's about being promiscuous, his wife is promiscuous. If it's about being slovenly, the wife is slovenly. If it's about being a gossip, the wife is the chief. If it's about stealing, the wife is a kleptomaniac. But that all of these things have come about simply because his wife is devoid of shame. She's shameless. That is why the Yorubas will say, àìlójútì, olórí àrùn. Shamelessness is the father of all vices, because the person devoid of shame will do anything and everything without feeling any remorse, or even if there will be no shame, nothing to suggest some level of repentance or an ability to avoid doing the same time. So you find that for the Yoruba person, the absence of shame is the height. Now, when Yoruba says àìlójútì, if you deconstruct that sentence, it is suggestive of the person who is incapable of shutting the eye, if you translate like that. But it goes deeper. Yorubas talk about the eyes being the window to the soul. And they also say that if you are a true, there are 16 doors, 16 trap doors into the human soul. And that when one is shut, the true Yoruba person will recognize it. So when they're talking about àìlójútì, they're talking about the capacity to introspect and have some regret have done and feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So when you feel like you shouldn't have done that, the eyes, which mirrors the soul, which is the window into the soul, will shut. That is what they're talking about, àìlójútì, an inability, incapacity to feel shame sufficient to make you close the window in your soul. So àìlójútì actually goes deeper than just shame. It speaks to an inability to have the presence of mind to recognize that what I've done is wrong. Now, when you now have a society, not just an individual, a society where the capacity to self-evaluate come to the understanding of the shamefulness of our collections and actions have become the order of the day. What you then have, I'm being told there is some network issue. I don't know if that is general to all of you, but I would have to wing it and continue. I have no control over what the network does or does not do. So when you have a situation where the collective have problems with shame, where they are just simply shameless, what you find is that the people act in manners that may be deemed perverse, almost inhuman, completely devoid of reason or ration. Look around Nigeria. Let us look around. You find that corruption has been normalized in our society. And when I speak of corruption, I'm not just speaking to the corruption of the ruiners. A mechanic will tell you that one thing is wrong with your car, but it is something completely different that he's fixing. He extorts from you. The teacher would sell handout, would demand sexual gratification before passing a student. And he will feel no sense of remorse because all the other lecturers have their own thing going. My wife runs a supermarket. There was a day, 4 staff were caught stealing. A culture of stealing had been normalized within that small business. There is no member who feels that what the other is doing is wrong because they are doing their own thing that are just as wrong as the ones being done by the other. If you're not stealing money from the business, but you're stealing goods, you're just as much of a thief as the person stealing the money. If you are not stealing money or stealing good, but you are eating the products without paying for it, you are just as culpable as those who are taking both products and money. So a culture of stealing is engendered in the space because everybody is doing one thing or the other that they are not meant to do. You then develop a culture predicated on the normalization of abnormality. So yes, we can speak about the stealings of Jagaban, we can speak to the stealings of his chief of staff, we can point at our National Assembly, Akpabio and them, but what about us as individuals, as a collective? Since we find themselves ruled by demons, it is the collective demonization of individuals that has led to the enthronement of demons in public office. Good people are rarely ever ruled by bad men and women. It is bad people who find excuses for evil that are ruled or ruined by bad people. So it is all well and good to point to the evil men and women ruling our country, but we also have a duty to examine ourselves as a collective. How did we get here? How did we get to the point where the government show of shamelessness? Arrests, first you started with, oh, Aboki FX is the reason why Naira was getting dropped his daily rate. And then you turned around and say, oh, it's the Binance people. Before the Binance, it was all the Aboki with their borrow the change. You started chasing them around, arresting them. EFCC found no other job to do again. Even the DSS got in on the act, and then you went around harassing these people. And when that didn't work, you jumped on Binance. You invited them into the country, and then you went ahead to arrest some of them, 2 of them actually. In the custody of the National Security Agency, like whatever they call the NSA, you arrested these people, and one of them escaped, quote and unquote. I was invited to the EFCC headquarters matter I handled years back, and I was there for the first time in my life. This was about a month or so ago, and I assure you, nobody can leave that premises without the sanction of the EFCC. And I'm talking about the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. How much more the National Security Agency? It had men in its custody, foreigners. And this foreigner, one of them, at least that's the story they want us to believe. One of them escaped the custody of the NSA. He came out of that place, not a black man or a white man. He wasn't the me that might have been able to blend in with the crowd. He would have stuck out like a sore thumb out of that custody. From there, got to the airport with all the checkpoints on the way. Not only got to the checkpoint, he went through the checkpoint, he actually entered a private jet. He went through immigration, he entered a private jet and left Nigeria. And the utter lack of shame made it possible for sane human beings to come and tell Nigerians that this man escaped from Nigeria. What level of shamelessness? And then up until this moment, no eggs have rolled. It tells you that there is a complete absence of shame in that space. If I were to be a megad, and I had custody of 2 rams inside the compound, and one of the rams escaped, I'll feel myself too shame, open my mouth to tell my oga what has happened to the ram. But the National Security Advisor had no shame telling Nigerians that the ram, in this case, a man that was arrested with great fanfare, has escaped Nigeria. This is merely symptomatic of the extent of shamelessness about the criminalities of those who are ruling us or ruling. It is impossible for something like that to have happened without extensive collaboration and complicity at the highest echelon of that security organization, if not the government itself. But we are made to believe that he simply walked out, walked through our airport, entered the private jet, and left Nigeria. Are we so stupid, or is it that we are just so completely devoid of shame? What about judicial corruption? The height of shame that will lead some men and women to make some of the pronouncements that have come out of our judiciary. Because if you had enough presence of mind and the capacity for self-reflection, you should even be ashamed to say some of the things that are said. Is it our churches? Let me bring something to your attention. Fisayo Shoyombo spent time diligently investigating the shenanigans in the Nigerian Customs Services. And he put it out there. And for weeks, he was releasing facts on a daily basis. This gentleman was releasing facts that he had garnered at great danger to his person. And what happened? The Nigerian police has not called IB Dende or BD Dende or whatever Dende. He hasn't called any of the custom persons mentioned. But what has he done? He proceeded to demand that the publishing house for which Fisayo works should come. It summoned them, and having not been satisfied with that, it has now summoned Fisayo himself to appear before it. Some wise guy, I believe it was Aiden, the gentle, I can't remember if that's his name now, the guy that was involved with the WikiLeaks. He says, when the truth teller is the one being chased around, then you should know that criminals are the ones running your government. The Nigerian state is essentially a criminal enterprise being run by criminal gangs. The police is no longer interested in the persons who have been exposed as criminals, but it is the person exposing the criminal that is the one being chased around. Esuru pada, only oloko. When you have the grass cutter, the farmer around, you should know that there are serious problems inside that your farm. The Nigerian state would rather protect the criminal and chase after the victim. That is where we have found ourselves today. But all these are possible only because there is a complete and utter absence of shame. It was Cameron that once looked at us as a collective, and he said the Nigerian is fantastically corrupt. What is it about us that is fantastically corrupt? What must have been identifying is the complete absence of shame in the Nigerian space, which would lead us to believe that you can just steal, you can do anything without consequences. Impunity is not the only problem we have. The impunity governing our space has been compounded by the complete absence of shame. Yorùbá will say, ohun tó tí ènìyàn lójú jolè lọ ó pọ̀. That means that there are many more things aside from stealing that should put a man to shame or make a man feel a sense of shame. To feel shame, you must feel remorse. To feel remorse, you must recognize the wrong in what. The fortunate thing is that the Nigerian no longer recognizes that anything is wrong with what he has done. But that is usually the case when perversion has become the order of the day. In the absence of a recognition of purpose, perversion becomes the norm. Nigeria has become a place where perversion has become the norm. This is what you're seeing every day. It is not just about shamelessness. It is about all the connective thread that shameless position. We have become a shameless people because purpose is unknown, perversion has been normalized, and this is where we are today. We have become a country of perverse people. Anything goes. Anything goes. No shame, no remorse, no accountability, because there is no rule of law. Perversion has become the order of the day in our country. There is a complete subversion of moral standards and etiquette. Yorùbá will say, ojú tì mí, ojú tọ̀rẹ́ mi, ojú ò tì mí. My friend has done something shameful, but I am not shamed. It used to be that to be called the friend of a thief was more or less the height of abomination. You didn't want to be associated with thieves. But it is the thieves that are recognized and made kings, given chieftaincy titles. The former Accountant General of the Federation, who was said to have stolen billions, all you ever heard about it was it having been mentioned not long after he left office. He was turbaned. He was turbaned. That is exactly the level of shamelessness that has overtaken our country. Almost for you to qualify to become a chief, an emir, a king, or an igwe, or something or the other, you would have had to have stolen humongous amounts of money, shown yourself to be completely useless in doing anything for the society other than to steal your way to power. Look at our president. It is the level of shamelessness. Let's even talk about the APC. The national chairman of the APC is the one person no reasonable human being would want to associate with. He was caught on video taking bribes from a contractor, stuffing dollars into his babariga. Talk about how we got to this place where naira is exchange. Oh yes, let's even see. There are more than enough malfeasances to point at. You come into power, grabbed it, snatched it, came into power, you met naira, a little over 700 naira to the dollar. You drove it with your carelessness, your stealings. It went up to as high as 1,007. Now you've done some abracadabra. You are doing a lot of manipulation with monetary policies. You've driven it down to about 1,350, 1,004, and you are busy applauding yourself. What level of shamelessness is this? Your party's chairman is a confirmed thief, busy stuffing his babariga with money, gang dollar, the mobile bank, and then you make that one the national chairman of your party. But happy to that, I look at the president himself with all the baggage. Yesterday or thereabout, he was meant to be turning 72. He knows he's lying. We know he's lying. We all know he's lying, and yet we pretend that it is normal. This is the level of shamelessness that has come to permeate our space. The destruction of every one of our societal morality has led to an epidemic of gambling. We don't even seem to understand the level of problems we have with almost every one of our youth engaged in productive ventures, chasing after naira, bet naija, bet naira, naira bet. And our celebrities, they can't even understand. They are endorsing madness, advertising it, profiting off bad putrefaction of entire society. I speak as a reformed gambler. I gambled in my younger days. I'll bet on practically anything and everything, from to cards, to dice, to draft. And I know the destructive effect of gambling. But look at our society. We've become so hopeless that gambling has become the norm. If you are looking to make any
Ndị be anyị daalụ nne nụ ngị bụ onye ọma na-ege ntị ka isi wee nụkwa n'onu anyị and ka isi wee sorola anyị n'ihe anyị na-eme na ife anyị mere n'ụbọchị nke taa na Eastern News 24. Anyị si na ọ ya dịrị nche dị na mma na Chukwuka abịa ma ya nọọla ya ofu na ofu, otu anyị kwuru otu aka ya dịrịrị. Ise ise ise. Dịka o si dị, unu anụgo n'ihe Biafran Prime Minister kwugasị dị iche iche, and chetakwa na ihe a bụ evening tea. Before anyị aga n'ihu ikwu okwu dị aha anyị chọrọ ikwu, nke bụ ọ bụrụ na ihe a ka bụ ụbọchị ize gị na-esoro anyị na Eastern News 24, kabalụ ka ị join anyị and subscribe or turn on your notification ka ịlapụ miss any of our daily update. Ọ dị ezigbo mkpa ụmụchukwu n'elu akwụkwọ ka ịlapụ miss ya, maka na ebe ị ga-enweta latest information na-emenụ ka ịma ka esi azụ onwe gị. Dịka o si dị, anyị jikwala ada ekene mmadụ dịka PM and also bụ ndị n'ọrụ n'ụlọ okwu, Maazị Nnamdi Kanu bụ onye ndu nke ndị Igbo. Chukwuka abịa ma ya nọnyere gị. Ikpe gị na-abịa na 19th, Chukwuka abịa ga-enye gị freedom. Ise ise ise. Ị ga-ewere onwe gị, ọ nwere ife onye iro pụrụ ime gị, maka ife ị na-ekwu bụ eziokwu. Chukwuka abịa masị gị kwuo eziokwu, a na-akụrọ mmiri. The gospel of Chukwuka abịa ya ka ọ na-ezi. Cheki ife niile onye ndu kwuru, pịkọ ka kreatọ, cheki stọk ya bụ ife niile a bụ ife n'ime obodo kịta. Chinefe a na-anụ ọzọ anọgide asị na sineti enye ya 500 million. Gịnị ka a jizi eme? And people nọ na-ata afọ, anọgide si mba not 255 million. What is happening? Sometimes na-ajụ ndị bayo gịnị na-eme na anyị ka e mere anyị ife a. Anọgide asị na eburu ụmụ akwụkwọ 200 and something Christians, to tell you that this country can never be one. Ọ bụrụ ofu, chekie ya. Ọ bụkwa a ga-asịkwa nọ ndị Biafran Liberation Army bi eje bugo n'ụmụaka na Sokoto, a ga-akpọkọfa afa na to tell you the country, the bias, everything is not working, nothing is working. Nwere ife na-arụ ọrụ, everything dị paralyzed ka onye ike ụwa gwụ. Cheki ya na ife anyị na-agwụ bụ eziokwu. Ịghọtago? $1 na go exchange onye ahụ ndụrụ over na 750. Now today is sending bụ almost 1,658 naira. Imagine. Igbo bụ Igbo gwụna kwa ha m n'ọnụ. Kabalụ ka kọmentị ya n'ihe ya and share ya, ọ dị mkpa ka o lichie more of our blooders and bleeders ka ha mara ife na-eme n'obodo. Daalụ nne nụ, ngwanụ ka emesịa n'ume Igbo.